the original position. Just standing for a few seconds. And I can feeling the exercise in the body. So we will have a question and answers.
She's one of the younger sisters in our Sangha, and very good with the younger people and the young person within us, and a very good sports person, footballer, basketballer. And Brother Fapshan, you just saw, he's from Spain, as I said, from Mallorca, no? Originally? Close, okay. Ibiza. Ibiza. Yeah, and Brother Faptrak, also very good at playing with that ball which you keep up in the sky. What is it called? Hacky sack. You know, you keep the ball up in your sky and you kick from every part of the body. You need real mindfulness. Brother Fapai from Australia, and Sister Hung Niem, who was a young nun when she gave me my ordination certificate when I was ordained into the 14 training. So a very important person for me, and very organized about everything. So you have very different people in the Sangha, and yet it's a very wholesome family, very happy family. So you just have a chance to ask questions, whatever questions you have. Matthew will help you with whoever wants to ask a question, please, you can put your hand up and Matthew will come with the mic.
I wanted to have some comments on two of the issues which have been coming up. One is the issue of age, the beauty of age, because we have been talking about, imagine your mother as a young person, the whole legend around that, rootedness. So, I mean, I'm 71, my mother is 91, and I think she is still beautiful. So that the whole question of age, I mean, do we think that beauty is only in youth? That's one thing. The second is related to disability, as we know in the world, the special abilities of people. When we say we have to be grateful that we have eyes, we have the smelling capacity, the hearing capacity, but there are millions around the globe who may not be having some of those things. How do we look at that? So just simple two questions. Any comments from any one of you? Looking at you, anybody else?
So what we could do is that we could take a number. It's a number of questions, so we could take a number, maybe 5. So 5 people would like to ask a question, and then we will begin to answer. And this side over here takes care of the easy questions. Those over there take care of the difficult questions. We already discussed about it, I hope. So we're taking care of the balance. We have another addition, Sister Hanyan. She's also a young sister from the United States. She's very fresh. But there are also older people that are very fresh, but we'll talk about that in a few moments. So please, the next question. There was a gentleman over there. Okay. Yeah.
A couple of days ago, articles keep coming in the newspapers about.
Yeah, please keep your microphone.
About the master. One of the articles was on mindfulness. It said you should be aware of the outside and aware of inside. And in light of this, I want to ask you, what is the difference between a meditation which is on a thought, and thought also disappears at some time, and the mindfulness which you are trying to develop?
Hello. So my question has to do with non-attachment to view and ethics. It's something that I'm constantly trying to negotiate, especially as a teacher. And I've studied with some non-dual teachers before that have told me there's no ultimate right or wrong. It's just what's appropriate for whom and when. But at the same time, in my heart, I can't help but feel that there are some things that are wrong, and some sort of ethical principles that we need to follow. So I guess what I'm trying to make sense of um, is how do we have this non-attachment to view? I don't know if I'm using the right language, but at the same time, um, espouse certain universal ethical principles. I mean, are there certain universal ethical principles? I hope my question makes sense. But it's something that I feel like at the end of the day, my job as a teacher is to make sure my students are caring and compassionate, um, and and that involves right and wrong. So I'm just trying to make sense of that, with not being attached to just principles at the same time.
Namaskar. I'm a Vipassana meditator. I think if the happiness is not illusionary, what Buddha has said, that misery is the final truth, and meditation is looking inside. This is not imaginary, and this is not mesmerizing. You can feel happiness for a moment, but it evades. It is a धोखा. आप सोचते हैं happiness is an illusion. Samta is reality. I want your comments, please.
Otherwise, our time will go very quick. So I think the last question belongs to the section over here, and we'll take care of the age is beauty and. So maybe our brothers and sisters here will reflect about which question they find more connected to. I will just share a little bit about the first question. The second one was about Tai talks a lot about being aware of our eyes that are still in good condition and so forth. And what happens if a person hasn't got eyes in a good condition or a heart, something like that, right? So I think one of the disabilities that maybe many of us have is that we have all these organs in good condition, but we don't know about it. So I think that's the main purpose of what he's talking about, that we should be aware that we have organs in good condition. Of course, if your eyes are not good condition, then of course that won't be necessarily a source of happiness. But what Tai is talking about is that we have the disability is non-awareness, non-recognizing that we do have things, and that is to some extent a disability. So if we become aware that I can walk, that I can see, my heart is working reasonably well, then that is a source of happiness. And in fact, he said that there's so many conditions for happiness. And actually, that's a reality. There's so many things that can give us happiness if we're in touch with them. So our job as people that want to practice mindfulness is to begin to recognize that we are actually quite lucky people. That there's so many conditions for our happiness. And there's also a question of cultivating a mind to realize. Like in the Buddhist tradition, you talk about sensations as neutral, non-pleasant and unpleasant. But if you focus on the neutral feelings and you're aware of your neutral feelings, they will become pleasant because you're conscious of them, and the consciousness begins as a pleasant awareness to it. So that's a part of our practice to recognize that there are many positive qualities in existence, and to be aware of them, and those are a source of energy and strength for our practice. There are other questions regarding age, and I find personally that there's also a lot of beauty in people that are older, and although our community is quite young, Thai is a good example of somebody who has aged quite well, I would say. And another aspect for me is that I begin to have as before I became a monk, I worked with old people, and I appreciate the reality of being old, and a sense of reverence for people that are old. And what I notice is that they become a little bit like children. I had to take care of people, I had to bath them, I had to feed them, I had to change the clothes, and they became a little bit like babies again. And there was also a quality of their presence, of the quality of all their life experience that was present. So I felt a sense of dignity, quiet dignity in their presence. So I think that's also very important. And maybe sometimes in a modern society, we tend to focus too much on the modern rush and forget that all the people are also very important people in our lives.
Dear Tay, dear friends, I'd like to address the question about mindfulness and thought. In Buddhist psychology, thought could be seen as mental formations. So a formation is something that is made up of different elements, different factors, and this is a mental, it's of the mind. And actually, when we have a thought, it's a thought of something. It has an object. So when we may have a thought about our feelings, or about a difficulty, or a joy. And mindfulness is also a mental formation. It is not. It needs to be cultured, or it needs to be cultivated. So a thought is something that doesn't it's there, but it needs to be continued. You need to be continued thinking about something for it to stay there, or else if you don't focus that on that one object, it changes to another object. So it's the same thing with mindfulness. If you don't focus your mindfulness on the same object, then what we term it to be forgetfulness, or you're no longer on that same. You're no longer having mindfulness or awareness on that object. Our practice is to be able to nourish the thoughts that are helpful, that are wholesome. Like today, our purpose of today being that to be able to be in touch with the seeds of joy, to be able to be in touch with the seeds of happiness, of stability, of peace, so that when we're focusing on that, we're watering and making those elements within us stronger. If we were to in our daily life, if we're busy and we get caught up with what we're doing, we forget, and we can get angry, or we can get irritated, and we continue to feed our thoughts, continue to think thoughts that are irritating or confusing, then our energy goes that direction. So being mindful of that helps us to redirect our thoughts, redirect our energy towards something that are more helpful, they're more wholesome. Thank you for listening.
I would like to answer about happiness is an illusion. I see that when I feel that I'm happy, because I am aware that I'm not suffering. And when I'm suffering, that means I'm not happy. So there is a connection between suffering and happiness. You cannot have happiness without understanding suffering. The reason I can be happy because I realize that my eyes is still in good condition, that my eye is not blind. If I'm blind, then I'll be suffering. But since I am more aware that I'm not blind, so there's a sense of gratitude in me. So I feel happy. So happiness is there. It's not really an illusion. Happiness exists. It exists because we be able to recognize and feel gratitude that we are having something beautiful inside of us. Or I can feel happy because I feel that I'm living with my wonderful brother and sister, and they are still here with me. And because they are not suffering, they are not apart from me, I feel the connection between them. So I feel that there's a sense of goodness, a sense of connection between us. So then I feel happy. You understand what I mean? So there is suffering, but suffering is not um, the everything. So there is also other things like happiness, like this and that, compassion, all of that. Thank you.
Dear sisters and brothers, just before coming to India, I was in Brazil. And while I was in Brazil, I had the opportunity to meet many different kinds of people. On one of the days, I was visiting an army camp where they were training young people, and I had the opportunity to practice walking meditation with these young teens. About halfway through the walking meditation, we stopped under a very large tree, similar to the tree over there. And there was a gentleman leaning against the tree, and he was radiant. So we went up to him with our translator, and we started to talk with him about his life. And he said he'd lived there for many years. And I said, how old are you? And because I imagined he was about 60. And he said, I'm 103 this year. And he was so radiant and happy. And he said, I've known this corporal who was in charge of our program since he was a baby. And he'd come to visit that tree every day. And I said to him, what is your secret? Because whenever I see somebody as happy and as radiant as that, and they are 103, I want to know what they do. And he said, well, every day, I just wish the best to everyone. Everyone that I meet, I wish that they are happy, I wish that they're well, I eat well for my body, and I simply enjoy wherever I am. And every day is the best day that I have. So I was really touched by that, and I saw that some of us are 30 years old, but we are older than that man who is 103. Some of us are 103, and yet we are 20 inside. So we can be old and yet very young within ourselves. Age is something that's very relative. Recently, I was watching a lecture by a woman. Her name is Evelyn Glennie. Some of you might have heard of her. She's a very well-known percussionist. She's a musician who's played with the London Philharmonic, and she's also played with many famous musicians around the world. And she is also profoundly deaf. So we can think this is a disability. She's profoundly deaf. She cannot hear things through her ears. And yet here is someone who plays with the symphony, who plays with many musicians and is in very high demand around the world. She shares a very touching story. She shared that as a young person, all she wanted to do was to play music. And she tried to enter the conservatory in London, the Conservatorium, and they kept refusing her. They said, how could you play music if you cannot hear? You have a disability. This is not your forte. You should go and learn typing or something, because playing music is not something you will be able to do. She shares that for her, she was able to experience and touch music deeply. She just found a different way to be able to listen. She said that she learned to listen with her hands. She learned to listen with her eyes, with her nose, with her tongue, with all of her body. So she said that she was able to hear the music just as well as those who were listening only with their ears. And she shared that for some of us, our idea of our hearing is so limited, but for her it's an experience of her entire body. So sometimes what we think are disabilities are simply different abilities. So we need not get caught in thinking that, okay, I have only one leg, or I'm not able to hear, or I cannot see, so therefore I cannot experience life as fully as someone who has all of these faculties. We experience life a different way. I'd like just to mention something about happiness. There's a very beautiful teaching of the Buddha which balances out the teaching of suffering. The Buddha teaches us to recognize our suffering so that we can transform it. That's the heart of the Buddha's teaching. The heart of the Buddha's teaching is not just suffering, but also the way out of suffering. And in a very beautiful teaching called the Mangala Sutta, or in our tradition we call the Discourse on Happiness, the Buddha goes through almost like a meditation for us to reflect on all these different conditions of happiness that we have the possibility to touch in our lives. The possibility to be in contact with wise friends, to participate in Dhamma discussions like we're doing today, to hear the Dhamma. All of these are conditions of happiness. And the list is quite long, to have a job that we like, etc., etc. And there's a very, very powerful sentence at the end that I believe addresses the question directly. After going through all the list of these conditions of happiness, which are external conditions, then the Buddha says, happiness lives within oneself. And this is our dilemma as humans. We're always looking outside. And this is where I think the confusion about happiness is. If we're looking for happiness outside of ourselves or somewhere else, something that we're going to get when we have another condition, then it's a problem. And that's where the Buddha teaches us to look within ourselves and find the happiness within. If we have happiness within, then wherever we go, as Tay mentioned this morning, we can sit as if we're sitting on a lotus flower. As sitting here, we can be as happy as we've ever been. But due to our condition, we are many people here in the same place, and some of us can be the happiest people on earth, and some may be sitting as if we're sitting on charcoal. So is happiness really dependent on external conditions, or is it also a quality of heart that we can learn to cultivate? So I wanted to add that also into the question on happiness. I wish you well.
We are negotiating. So I would like to ask this to share a little bit about the question of non-attachment to views and right and wrong. I could give the example of the 5 mindfulness trainings as a guideline. And I think you're familiar with the mindfulness trainings because you've been around for a few days. So But just in case for the rest of the people that are not familiar, I think there are some. We have some sheets about the 5 mindfulness trainings. For me, the quality of mindfulness is something that helps me recognize uh, things. Sometimes there's an inner voice that tells us, "Oh, it doesn't feel right about something," or we do an action and we wonder if this is a good action or not. What is the ethic of this action? And sometimes we're not aware at all. So the context of the 5 mindfulness trainings, they are like a structure of mindfulness that can help us to look at the actions that we do on a regular basis, like eating, speaking, thinking, etc. And it makes us to look at that action and how we relate to that action. And it gives a little bit of a guideline. And maybe the question is, will this action create suffering or not? So a lot of this we can look in terms of suffering. Like let's look at being vegetarian or eating meat, for instance. It's a question. Is eating meat right or wrong? I don't think it's a question of black and white, right or wrong, like that. Maybe there's degrees of suffering. So before I was not a vegetarian, so I used to eat meat, although I didn't eat big chunks of meat, I used to eat some meat. And then one thing I begin to be aware of is that there was suffering in the animals, because we had animals at home. We had chickens, we had rabbits, and we had other animals. So I could see there was some degree of suffering, because normally it was me that had to go and kill the chicken, because my mother didn't want to do it. My sister didn't want to do it. So I had to do it. So I try to be as compassionate as possible, but of course, I did create some suffering. So, and I recognized that there's some animals I could not kill. I could not kill the rabbits. Maybe the chicken, my relationship to the chicken was a little bit less compassionate, but I could not kill a rabbit. That was impossible for me to do. So I used to fish. So I could fish, and I didn't have any problems. On some level, I did have some problems, but I would fish. And then slowly I became more sensitive, luckily, and I recognized actually there's quite a lot of suffering in what I was doing. So I began to be aware of that and begin to let go of eating meat. So now my relationship to eating meat is not a dogmatic relationship. I understand that people still eat meat. So what I'm saying is that maybe we need to see what degree of suffering is this in this. So when I used to eat meat, I used to buy meat from farms that didn't cause extra suffering to the animals. And I felt that was an important ethical guideline for me, at least. So I would go to my local farmer that I knew that would raise the animal, the chicken, or the lamb, in a way that didn't make the animal suffer extremely. That the animal could have a life, while it was alive, more or less better than other animals. So I think we can go, and it depends on sensitive or view mindfulness and awareness. In fact, I feel, for instance, that when I read about Gandhi's awareness of nonviolence, I feel there's a very deep awareness of suffering or non-suffering. What is right or wrong is difficult to know. But I feel he came from a very deep awareness of suffering, and that's why he refused to eat animals and refused to consume milk, because he was aware that there is a suffering there. And they could see the connection between that and violence. So I feel the more deeper we go, the more awareness, we can touch a certain reality there. And it's not an idea, it's a felt sense of understanding. So I feel if we cultivate mindfulness, we become more and more aware. And a lot of us are children, we didn't never want to eat meat. Why? Because there's already some awareness there. So my mother forced me to eat meat, because she was worried that if I was a vegetarian, I would not grow. I didn't grow very much anyway. So, anyway, that's another story.
Freedom of action, and how does he relate being bound by karams, connection between karam and freedom of action?
a question that is connected to your practice, perhaps your happiness in this moment, or something like that? A very practical question.
I have a Salon. I have a question related to the Apple meditation. I found myself not having happy thoughts after trying to be in the moment of having the apple. Initially, you know, there was the fragrance and there was the nice sweet things, but I found myself having thoughts about what it meant to be eating and for life to be consumed by other life, and then ultimately about the complete destruction of all forms of life and all forms of being. And there was a great mystery that I felt, and associated with that sense of mystery was a sense of fear as well, because I don't know why. I found myself asking, why is it that I can have a question about this apple going into my body and my body being an instrument of service for other people, but in the end, why? Why is all of this happening like this? And I know I can't answer that question. And that gave me some fear. And so associated with the sense of mystery and the sense of the existence being ultimately being destroyed, there was a fear that went with it. And I want to know what kind of comments you have about that.
Okay, just a couple more questions. Is the lady over there?
Can you hear me? He started by saying he would give the 5 guidelines of mindfulness, but it didn't come out. You spoke about meat and non-meat eating. Thank you. Would you please just briefly tell the 5 guidelines of mindfulness? Thank you very much.
I just wanted to add, we also have a audio CD on mindfulness, 5 mindfulness frames.
Yeah. Yeah. My mother died almost at the age of 60, about 28 years and 6 months ago. She was a working person and she had to suffer 2 years cancer. I mean, I feel quite sad. She didn't see much of our success and all. But she was a working lady. My mother-in-law now, my father died, my father-in-law also died. My mother-in-law is maybe about 78 now, but she's suffering from dementia for the last maybe 4 or 5 years. And that's a very sad state of affairs. It can go further on to Alzheimer's. And the person most affected probably was my brother-in-law, whom she was, and now my wife, who's very sensitive. She's losing patience, but still she continues. And whenever I see her, and I'm not that much attached, obviously. I just think about my mother, even more than that. Thank God she died at a much younger age, at least I didn't see her that kind of stuff. So I think I'll leave it to that. So my father also had...
Please keep your mic closer so we can hear.
My father also had problems, like he was practically blind, but still he enjoyed his drink and his smoke and his food and whatever like. But I see this dementia is much worse. And it's almost a laughing. You have to keep a lady to look after her in some hours. It's almost very difficult state. Any comments from your side?
So, the last question for now, so we can answer the previous ones. One more, perhaps.
My question is some kind of clarification on the breathing meditation. I has said this morning that whenever any emotion is rising, let us say anger, hatred, so don't worry about that, just keep on doing the breathing meditation. Now, the fact is that that energy of anger has arisen. It is there. One is wishing away that, okay, let it be there, but focus on the breathing meditation. Actually, what happens, I think, isn't it necessary that that energy should be really dealt with and transformed? so that, like in today's world, like on the computer, the things pop up, it doesn't become irritant for the future. I would like to get the clarification on that.
So, maybe our brothers and sisters can see which question. So, I would like to share a little bit about dementia. I guess none of us really know when we get older what's going to happen to us. Very few, I guess. If you have a good lifestyle, you may be more lucky. But actually, you don't really know because a lot of it is transmitted genetically as well. So you may look at your mother, your father, your grandparents, and you may see what may be possible arising. For me, I feel if a person has dementia, there's a couple of things I would do. First, if the person is living in an environment that has kindness, love, and care, it's going to make a big difference. In this old people's home where I was working, I feel that the staff, it was understaffed, there was no time for the patients. We had people with Parkinson's disease, with dementia, many different things. And the environment wasn't very nice. They were actually quite lonely. There was a lot of stress because the staff didn't have much time to take care. So I realized that actually, if we have love and care, even the person has dementia or Parkinson's disease, they are going to receive, to some extent, our love and care. The environment is very important. So if this person can be in an environment with dust, it's not a stressful environment, there is some love and care, I think, to some extent, even that you won't transform the dementia of the person is going to feel that. It's going to feel that you have care in your heart, that there's love in your heart, that there's patience, there's attention, and that person is going to feel that. So I feel that environment where he or she is living is important, and the quality of the people that they are taking care of the person is also important. So we can do quite a bit actually. And I feel that's also very important, not because a person has dementia or Parkinson's disease, the person is not there. It is there, although whole brain may not be working quite well, but the person, the being in itself is there. So I feel that's also important. So when we take care of a person, we feed or we wash the person or we speak to the person, what is your attitude, you care and you love is important aspects of taking care. I think that's it makes you feel better because you recognize that the person could be in a worse condition. There are homes where people are hosted. They put the TV in front of them to entertain them. They're very lonely people. The family comes once a month if they come at all. So there can be a quality of relationship there. That's very important.
Apple and destruction. When I eat the apple, I felt very good, very nourishing. Especially the apple is very young, very juicy. And I see that there is suffering also. When I eat the apple, I can see that there are those who don't have a chance to have something to eat. Then I might feel there is suffering inside. So the apple, it can be something that brings you happiness, but it can give a rise on something that is not nourishing and not happiness at the same time. If you put your mindfulness into that area of happiness, then your mind will generate happiness. But if you put your thought and your energy into the destruction part of it, then your mind will be not so happy and it will go to the suffering and destruction. So I think we have to know how to generate the positive side of mindfulness. And we can look at the suffering side of mindfulness to understand why. And that will help us to have more understanding of ourselves, and we'll understand what is going on. I think I didn't understand the question, but that's my thought on that. Thank you.
Dear brothers and sisters, I would like to share a little bit about anger and our breathing. I was a very angry person, and at the same time, I'm very short-tempered. Every now and then, I sort of lose it myself also. But how I coordinate my breathing and transforming my anger is not a process that is happening. Usually, when I'm angry, and this morning I spoke about the energy of mindfulness, all I needed to do was to recognize that this is anger. And for me, the first step of transformation already is the recognition itself. Sometimes we are angry and we don't know that we are angry, and then we continue to be angry and we act upon our anger. And so mindfulness is that kind of energy that recognizes that this is anger. I am angry right now. And then with our breathing, we come back to our breathing to calm ourselves. We had a workshop, and once that we had one of our sisters got colored sand, and we put it in a vase of water, and then each color was the representative of our emotions, our feelings, and one of them was considered anger. And when we stir it up in our mind, the water was very all mixed up. And when we gave an example, if we come back to our breathing and we're able to calm ourselves, then our anger will naturally transform. You cannot expect that. For me, I know it took me 10 years, almost 10 years to transform my anger, and it still haven't completely transformed itself. But every time it arises, I am able to recognize it, and recognize it before I actually do anything. So then the recognition is already the transformation, and the mindful breathing is what nourishes our mindfulness to be more aware of what is happening within ourselves and not to think it's too late. Sometimes our awareness comes after we do something or we say something out of anger, but the next time around, it will come before if we continue to water the seeds of conscious breathing. So it's not neglecting the anger that is there, but it's actually watering the seeds of mindfulness and being aware of what is happening within yourself. And so now, after so and so years of practice, I am able to recognize my anger as it comes up. It's not as often as it used to be, but it's still there, and it will always be there. But with my conscious breathing and with generating my mindfulness and nourishing my mindfulness through walking meditation or sitting meditation, helps me be aware of that, so I don't have, so it doesn't overgrow in my garden. and take over in my body. So that is my practice of how I take care or transform my anger, is to see it not as something that needs to be completely away, but more of a recognition of that my anger is already the start of transformation. So that's something that I would like to share with all of us.
So, dear friends, each of you, I believe, has received one of these booklets, which is Enjoying Your Practice. And in this booklet is the text of the 5 mindfulness trainings. So we invite each of you to take the opportunity to read those. They're on page 14. I wanted to mention just a little bit more about the 5 mindfulness trainings in light of the question earlier about the ethics and not being attached to views. In each of the trainings, they begin with aware of the suffering. And 4 of the trainings also have the words learning ways. So, as my brother shared earlier, when we practice mindfulness, we become more sensitive to our situation within, our inner environment, and our outside environment. In fact, they are the same, but in the beginning it's helpful to see our inner environment and our outside environment. And over time, as we begin to develop this seed of mindfulness, certain behaviors become natural for us. And these 5 mindfulness trainings are meditations to help us direct our attention in our daily life. For example, aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life, I vow to cultivate compassion and learn ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. It's a very concrete meditation to hold in our heart. In fact, in the Chinese, it's not just said that we take the trainings. It's said that we recite and we hold the trainings. It's the same term that's used when we practice a mantra. You don't practice a mantra only with your mouth, but you hold it with all of your being. So this gives us a very different sense. It means that as we walk, as we eat, as we talk to each other, these are the lenses through which we can contemplate our life, our eating meditation, our conversation, our driving to work. They're very, very transformative tools, and I invite you into looking at those. It seems that maybe my brothers and sisters are a little bit scared of the word karma. Everyone's looking at everybody else to share about that. Karma in Buddhism is seen a little bit differently. Karma in Buddhism is seen to be action. We speak of karma and we speak of the fruits of karma. If I hit very hard the platform, this is the karma, and the fruit of karma will be a very sore hand. Okay? Karma is a very complex topic, but in our tradition, we would probably share more in terms of causes and conditions. And we always look at things in light of the present moment. In Buddhism, when we look at the present moment, we see that we always have a choice. This is the most powerful thing in life. That whatever circumstance we're in, we do have a choice on how we respond. So in the present moment, we see that many causes and conditions have given rise to us being here today. And if we look around, we can see what a precious moment this is, because we will never be in this formation again in this lifetime. This is it. So we've all come from many different places, many different situations, and yet we've planted the good conditions to be able to be here today. And this moment gives rise to the next one, and the one after that, and the one after that. So sometimes we think, how can I have a happy future? Or how can I transform my situation? And it seems like something so big, and very often it is. And At the risk of sounding simplistic, I want to say that one of the most powerful things in Buddhist practice is to direct our attention to what we are able to do right now, what we can take care of right now. The best care we can take of the future is by taking care of now. Sitting here, we cultivate the energy of peace, of joy, of solidity, of an open heart. And that energy will carry out to the next moment and the next one. So here we are for a day of mindfulness, and very soon the day will come to a close. And it's up to us to use the conditions in our daily life, the traffic jam, the telephone, the mobile phone, whatever, as reminders to help us to cultivate in our future present moments these qualities of heart. So although we say the day of mindfulness comes to a close in just a few minutes, it continues in a certain form. And it affects our life. So this is how we understand karma in Buddhism, in terms of causes and conditions. And we don't have the concept of fate in Buddhism. We see we always have the possibility to bring about transformation within ourselves, in our families, and in society. So we wish you very good luck.
So, dear Thai, dear Sangha, it's not that I really feel there's a need to say any more to these questions, because I feel they've been shared upon already. But since I'm sitting here, I guess I can share my idea, or how I work with the first one that when someone asked the question, what came to my mind right away about what are thoughts and what's the difference between our thoughts and mindfulness is that what I imagined is, my thoughts are like the clouds in the sky. They change form. You can find some are like animals, and then suddenly, they become very heavy and they rain. So then they fall sometimes, or sometimes they just disperse into the vast sky. And mindfulness is like a muscle, and the more we train it, the more we nourish it, and we use the muscle of mindfulness, it grows and it strengthens and it expands. But if we don't use it and we're not utilizing this muscle we have, it will shrink and become smaller. It's not that it disappears, but this it's just not as apparent within us. So that was the thought I had on that. And as for karma in action, this year I feel many things have kind of come across to me, the things I didn't understand earlier. I haven't talked to my dad's mom for about 8 years, and she wrote me, I wrote her a letter one time, and then this year she turned 90 years old, and she wrote one line that was a little bit like, whoa. She's like, for my 90th birthday, you'll be the only person not there, and I hope you're happy with the life you have chosen. And I was like, whoa, the life I have chosen, because she's Jewish, and typically we don't like to break away from our roots. We like to find a way to work through our problems rather than run away. And so for her, it's like me running away from the family. And so I didn't call her or write her back because I couldn't feel at ease with the life I have chosen. And now coming to India, something a few days ago that came to me is that it's true. I'm the one who chose this life. However, the reason why I was able to choose it is because when I wanted to look deeper into Judaism and follow that path, my family they weren't there for me. They didn't want to help me with my questions. They didn't want to, they didn't come and take me out to dinner or invite me over to just hang out. So I have to find something. I can't just let my life, drizzle away meaninglessly with no path. So when I find a practice of mindfulness in a community that knows how to live in harmony, of course it's like I make that choice to live there. And but it's also because of the things that I have been lacking. And I find the freedom of action from this point is I have a now, even though this is the fruit of my karma, the way I have, of my past, but now I choose how I want to live as a nun and how now I will relate to my family. So I feel like that is where I have, some illusory sense of freedom of how I choose. So thank you. Dear friends, it is almost 6 o'clock now, and I think we're going to end our day of mindfulness here. We would like to thank everyone for your questions and helping us ourselves to look deeper into our own practice. And I think I'm going to pass the microphone to Shanti.
So, dear friends, I'm very glad that we've been able to spend this day together in mindfulness, and hopefully we can spend more days of mindfulness together in Delhi. We are very, very fortunate that the brothers have come, and you can, in the answers, you can hear that we are all basically brothers and sisters in the practice. The questions and answers are very similar in our own lives, and so I think that I'm very the genuineness of living, it comes through very clearly. And I think the authenticity of practice, of the attempt to practice a path, is very clear. So I think that we've had a very nice day, and we also have a chance in Delhi for a 5-day retreat. This is a real treat, a retreat. And, we were going to do it outside of Delhi somewhere where people would have to go for 5 days residential. But we realized that most people would have to go from Delhi. It's very hard to do residential retreat. So we would really like it. So we're doing 3 evenings, a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and a weekend. And the weekend is open for children also. We'd really like, we would have actually liked even today to be for children, but we just didn't have the people resources. We just didn't have the people to help us. So we just said, Thai always likes to walk with children, talk to children, teach children. That's, and I just feel that we just went up to it. But on the weekend, we'll have children for the retreat. So please bring your children too, or your nieces, or grandchildren, or whoever you want, friends, children. But I would suggest that you come for 5 days. I know the Delhi mind. I'll come. You see, I already have this program on Thursday, so maybe Wednesday, then Saturday I'll come, and so forget it. Just do it. You won't get this chance again. And if you're going out for dinner with a friend, bring the friend. But I'm serious. We're not going to get Thai again easily. I don't know when. So please try and come all for 5 days. Don't say that I'm coming for 1 day and then I'll go another day. And if it fills up, then it fills up. Then you can't say sorry. Then you just get stopped. So I'm pushing this so hard because there are only a few of us who spend through the whole day. And that's why I feel that we're all genuine. We want to do this. So that's one thing. The second thing is a friend was saying that, we don't need to say Tiknya Than all the time. We can say Thai. We've been saying Thai, but all of us can say Thai. Thai just means teacher. So it's an easy way of saying it. So it's just the way all of us call him. So instead of saying Tiknya Than, we say Thai. So that's easy. And also today on NDTV, you might have noticed that Thai is coming quite a lot on news. He edited the Times of India on the 2nd of October. And today he's doing Walk the Talk with Shekhar Gupta at 9:30 on NDTV. If you haven't had enough already, you can have another dose. But he talks about how he met John McCain and, and talked about how they were making the same mistake in Iraq as they did in Vietnam and things like this on a political front. So there's a lot we're very grateful for. We're very grateful to the IIC again. With us in practice with his wife. So I'm very glad that the government is supporting us. The Indian Council of Cultural Relations, which invited Thai as a distinguished visitor, and of course Thai, they invited him business class. So he said, no, I'll come economy class. They booked a nice suite in Taj Mansingh Hotel. So he said, no, I can't hang my hammock there. So he's going to stay in where we're staying. People who are working with us, who are working beyond their, obviously, there's much more in a volunteer spirit. So we really would be, I think this thing wouldn't be possible without them. And I just feel that my gratitude is overflowing, and much more so really to the brothers and